Shabbat Shalom to all of you. This week we have double parashot, Tazria Metzora. And this is a time of also special. We just went through Yom HaSmut. That is the day of the independence or creation of Israel. We had the opportunity to be in the march on Thursday. Even the snow, interestingly enough, we were there and we stand up and we rejoice about the 70 years anniversary for Israel. And that is a joy that many, many, many more years. That is only the beginning of this beautiful situation of having Israel back in our times. This week, these two parashot are going to be talking about an area that if I can put it all together, we call Tahor Betamei. And this is about the way that it's translated, what I don't like it, is pure or impure, or clean or unclean. The problem is that we are not clear on understanding this message from the Torah. First of all, this is not what we think it is about some kind of leprosy or disease, a contagious disease or something like that we used to think about it. But this has more to do with the attitude of the person to be present in the Beit Midrash on the Chol Moed, to be in the presence of the Creator, in the place that He has given to Israel to worship Him. Today, as you know, we do not have any longer the Beit Midrash. We don't have any longer a temple. And then the question is these things are applicable today or not? All depends who read it and how they understand it. And this is the problem many times about what we look at the scriptures and everybody wants to give you their opinion. The sages, they give you one way, and not only that, but they read it and they start adding and adding and adding and adding to the point that becomes almost impossible to understand what is really a clarity for this. I want to try to be very simple because I like simplicity even in the most difficult areas. Tahor and Tamei has to do with life and death. This is the basic idea. Tahor is living, Tamei is dead. And what you are going to see that our God is the God of the living, they say. No? And when you go to be presented before the Creator, you are a living being. And a living being needs to be presented in a way that is clear and presentable, if we want to say in that way. And when you have something that it is an obstacle for you to be present on Him, you need to take that thing off from yourself, prepare yourself, and go presentable. You know, for example, to give you an idea, you know, you are invited to a wedding. No? How do you go to a wedding? You go dressed like a beggar? You go to the worst that you can. First of all, many people, when they're going to go to something special, what they do first, they take a shower. No? And then they acicalate themselves. They try to look nice. No? And after that, what they do, they put the best vestments that they have, clothing. You know? They try to look good. And especially if you're a girl, oh, that is even more work, you know. A boy takes 1 hour to get ready. A girl takes 2 weeks. But it's more or less, that's the process, you know, to give this idea. Now, with the Creator, it's the same thing. The Tahor, you are presentable. With the Tamei, you are dead. You are not ready to be presented. The word Saraat, that has been translated, and especially that idea came from the Septuagint, you know, was translated leprosa. And from there came the word lepers or leprosy. And it's not the Hanse disease, by the way. But what we can look at and we can understand it. I am trying to be very simple, but at the same time, I would like to get to the point. When you have something inside you, it start destroying you, and you don't see it. You know, today, with the advance of technology and medicine has been going so far, doctors are discovering more and more, psychiatrists, psychologists, and all doctors, neurologists, all the doctors that have to do with the mind and the body, they are discovering that there is no any longer that separation between one and the other. And one of the things that is almost now a fact is when you are emotionally empty or emotional weak, or when you have an emotional situation that you are struggling with. You know, today, one of the diseases that are very popular is what? Depression. You know? But you are going to see that many of those diseases that are, we call it psychological or mental diseases, has a great influence in the physical body. The doctor has discovered that when you are under this stress, and under this depression, your immune system gets low. And when your immune system gets low, you catch any disease that you can catch. I want to tell you, many people think a cancer was invented just yesterday. To your own surprise, all of us, we have cancerous cells in our body. All of us. Then when the cancer becomes very strong, when our system has been diminished, because we went through a very difficult situation, through a very stressful situation, to a situation that we couldn't deal with, and our body becomes very, very weak and couldn't defend themselves against the inner cells that we already have. They are not good. Because our body is constantly fighting against those things. Then the Creator tells us, you know, if I go to Devarim, I like this portion, only in Deuteronomy, Devarim, chapter 30, verse 15. The Creator say, look, today I put before you life and good, and also I put before you death and bad things. Choose life. Now let me go back again where I start about Tamei and where I say Tahor. I like to say there the Tahor, Tamei. life and death. You're going to see, for example, what is very interesting to understand this even better. The things that are separating to us is the emissions that we as humans, we produce, that are emissions of life, that once came out of our body, becomes dead. In the women, in the regular menstrual period, every month, after they are ovulated and they have not become pregnant, the woman, what the woman does, discharge those things that are not part, that they used to be to form life, and now once they come out of their body, they are dead. Okay? That is what we call a contamination. The same thing happens with men. When they have seminal fluids that come out of the body, that also come out of the body, and they don't do their job, what happens? They become death, contamination, because it's a dead body. Then the separation is about life and death. What the Creator is telling us is that He has given life, and this life is to live it, and to be positive, and to do what is right. And what is the thing that instead to give us life, start to destroy us? One of the worst elements that we have, or the best element, all depending, is so-called the tongue. The tongue is a little instrument that is worse than the atomic bomb. This little element can destroy you or can make you. Ladies, don't get upset with me, but there is always a saying. When men fight, they fight and they can kill each other, but they fight in the moment. But when ladies fight, they use their tongue and they cut you in little pieces. They do surgery with their tongue, and they separate you in little pieces. And they're so good because they have this better capability than men to use their tongue. They are more verbal. And this is a problem for men and female. This is called Lashon Hara, the evil tongue. And this is what our sages call it. And the word Metzora, they say it is the contraction of the word Mosei Ra, and they had put it Mosei Sham Ra. That is to bring out a bad name to a person. Metzora means the person who has the diseased person, the sick person. And this person is sick because of the tongue and how they use the tongue. At this moment, if I ask you, has you ever talked bad about anybody? Of course, you have never done that. I am the only one bad here, but it's okay. I take my consequences, But the truth of the matter is, if you're human and you have a tongue, better believe me, it's very hard to dominate that tongue. It's too sharp and too dangerous. And we need to be in constant struggles. And that is the reason that we are in constant process of going from Tamei to Tahor. In other words, from death to life. And how we can go from death to life is through the process of Teshuvah. Teshuvah is the process in which all of us, we come together we acknowledge what we have done, we recognize, we confess it with the same tongue that we have done something wrong. Now we need to confess it, and we need to do the reparation to get closer to the Creator. Now, why these things only apply for the Beit Mikdash? Because there is when you supposedly you need to be totally clear of any wrong things when you are presenting to the Creator. You know, today, because we don't have the Beit Mikdash, we don't have those things, we play that very, it's not a problem. You can come to worship God, and maybe inside you there is the worst thing that could be. But we are very capable to fake. We are very, very capable to look like something that we are not. And the truth of the matter then, the Creator is asking us to be ourselves. And to be, first of all, honest with ourselves in order that we can be honest with others. Because if we can be honest with ourselves, then we can be honest with others, we can be clean before the Creator. I am not saying to you that it's easy. And I am not saying to you that we can expect not to do it. I always have told you that the Creator didn't make us perfect. Other religions that teach you that you can reach perfection. I say, wishful thinking. When you accept your own reality is when you can really come back easier to the presence of the Creator. Because when you realize that you are limited, the only thing that you can do is to ask for help. To make it right. To do it right. To keep improving. Have you heard me that many times I say to you, there is a process in our lives. You know, all of us are living beings. We go through a process. From birth to death. We are growing in different ways. Some of us, we grow in the right way. Some of us, we grow a little twisted. Do you know the saying when you plant a tree, and if the tree grows crooked, it's almost impossible to put it straight again unless you break the tree and you plant it again. How many of us today, we need to be broken in order to come back to the direction of the Creator, to be tahor, and to get rid of the tamei. You see, Lashon Hara is more than only talking bad about somebody else. It's spreading lies about others. It's criticizing others because you don't like it the way that they are without talking to them in their faces. Or creating a system or an environment against others only for the sake of creating sinah chinam, gratuitous hate. Many of us, we are sick, and sometimes we don't know why. But I want to tell you one thing. When you are spiritual sick, sooner or later it's going to come back to your physical body. And you need to be honest with yourself. Sometimes we take very light. I have gone through difficult times, physically speaking. And I personally went through a process that I almost died. And let me tell you, in that process, I learned a lot of things, because when you are sick, you are separated from the Creator. Very interesting. It's the quarantine. When you are sick, you feel like you cannot approach the Creator. Why? Because first of all, you need to deal with yourself. Until you don't deal with yourself, one can't healing. What is the thing that are holding you back to have a relationship with the Creator? What you have done, or what you have thought, what you have expected, that is holding you back. Because until you don't make it right. You know, people come to me and say, Rabbi, what about how to confess or how to make it right? And I say to people, when you commit a sin or you commit a fault publicly, you have the obligation to make it right publicly. When you commit a sin or fault privately, you need to make it right privately. Because our Creator, the Borei Olam, is always there. And He knows exactly what you and we are doing. There is no one here on us that has the idea that I can hide from the Creator. It's impossible. I told you the last week, that our Creator has a night vision. He can see in the very dark areas. And He doesn't need a lantern, a light, or anything like that. He can see you, wherever you are. In a practical way, let me ask you this question. Can you make it today to think about what is holding you back? What is the thing that doesn't allow you to be free? What is the thing that doesn't allow you to live? Because do you know what is the difference between life and death? Do you know what is the difference to be alive or to be dead? When you are dead, everything decays, everything is composed, everything is destroyed. When there is life, everything is growing, flourishing. And do you know that your own attitude, be an attitude of life or an attitude of death, can be an attitude of tahor or an attitude of tamei. When I was writing for speaking to you this morning, I say, what about this idea? When you have a glass, half of water, and you see the glass. When you see the glass, how do you see the glass? Half full or half empty? I want to tell you, to all of you who see the glass half empty, you are very self-destructive. You are very negative. Negativity conducts you to death. You see, when you start seeing everything is wrong, if nothing is okay, nothing is good, you become so critical that you yourself damage your inner being. Let's try to see the positive things of everything. And the things that are so negative, let's try to look what will be the way to take care of that. to help. But we can live that way, and we thinking that nothing happened to us. But you're going to see the results. Don't ever think that there is a separation between your spiritual life and your physical life. They are all attached. Do you know sometimes why you get sick? Look at it. Hear me well. I say sometimes. I'm not saying all the time, because people are very quick to tell me you say that. No. But sometimes you get sick because the Creator is slowing you down. And He's putting you in quarantine for you to deal with the issues that you have not dealt. Or you are passing by. And what He wants for you is to make it right. You have heard me many times. My favorite is Psalm 139, verses 23 and 24. Many say to me, Rabbi, why is your favorite psalm? Because here say, search me, O God, and look within me, and see the things that I cannot see, and show me what is holding me back, in order that I don't keep doing it, and I can have a free way to go to you and to have life, to worship you. In a very special way, and let me tell you this in a short way. The Creator has given to choose between life and death, and He said, I want for you to choose life. Have we chosen life? Or we are very happy to be choosing death? Our life speaks for themselves. And let me tell you, not because things go wrong in your life sometimes, that means that you're doing something wrong. But maybe it's for you to think about it and to call your attention and to meditate on something and to have a better perspective. Those people who do not have the capability to change are the people that have more problems than anybody else. Those people who live already in the format. This is the way I am, and this is the way I'm going to die. These people are the ones that are going to suffer more. Because we need to be flexible. And we need to start learning to grow and to look for life, not for death. And the first step to look for life is to acknowledge ourselves. You know, I always say to you that one of the greatest problems that as individuals we have is that we have problems to forgive ourselves. You will be surprised how hard sometimes it is for us when we commit a mistake or we do something wrong to say, I'm sorry, or to say, I did wrong. And the people who are hard heads, the people who have more hard time to acknowledge their mistakes, are the people that have more problems to grow up. When you cannot learn from your own mistakes, and you cannot learn from other people's mistakes, you are going to go to another way. In the Torah, in this parashot, you need to present yourself before the Kohen, the priest. And they are the ones that they are going to decide it is or it is not a disease. Because they are going to check about your inner being, how exteriorized. And you can look in that way when you start making your own search within yourself. You are going to be able, if you are Tahor or you are Tamei. You have life or you have death. May our Creator, Borei Olam, be allowed to give you life to all of you, to all this community, and that we look and search more for life than for death. Shabbat Shalom.
So that message by our rabbi is really, for me, a very powerful one. This is probably the third time this week that I've listened to it, and especially because I've been home sick, and I have really been in what I would call a spiritual quarantine. And it's interesting that, it gave me a lot of time, and time is a precious gift, and we so often waste it. I am one of the busiest women that I know, and I'm fast approaching 79. I get more done in a day than people half my age. But although I think I'm doing most of what I do for God, when I've had time, really time to think, I was in a conversation with Miriam this week, and the words of Rav Shaul came up. And I went to read it this morning. It's from Romans chapter 7. Rabbi Shaul has been given a very bad rap, the way Yeshua has. They don't understand him, and they've made him the inventor of a new religion when he never did. And I understood these words so clearly, because sometimes I do what I don't want to do, and I say what I don't want to say, and I come across all wrong, and I get so frustrated. And this is what Rav Shaul says: I do not understand what I do. For what I want to do, I do not do. And what I hate to do, but what I hate to do. And if I do what I do not want to do, I have to agree that the Torah is good. As it is, it's no longer I myself who do it, but it is sin living in me. We have that lashon hara in us. They have the evil tongue. We have the yetzer hara, the evil inclinations. So it is a battle that we're in. He says, for I know that good itself does not dwell in me. That is, in my sinful nature. For I have the desire to do what is good, but I can't carry it out. For I do not do the good I want to do, and the evil that I do not want to do, I keep doing. Now, if I do what I don't want to do, it's no longer I who am doing it, but it's sin living in me that does it. I have wonderful conversations with friends and family, and I never really say what I mean. Instead, I end up looking superficial or lighthearted, always happy, and sometimes even perhaps self-serving. And I'm shining my light as if the light is from me, but that's not what God's light is. So why is this so important for today? His message may not seem to be so relevant, given everything that we see going on in the world. We're in a war. We're in a spiritual war that you and I, personally, we cannot win, because it is a spiritual one. There isn't one family that I know that is not suffering deep pain. But so many are putting on a wonderful facade. I listened this morning to a podcast about what's happening right now in New York City. That city was built by immigrants who escaped persecution. They were seeking religious freedom and financial opportunities to be able to feed and protect their families, just like my great-grandparents did in 1906 when they escaped the pogroms. These were hate demonstrations that led to murder, rape, and every demonic act known to mankind. And this, as I said, this Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance, was We had it last week, and this week we're going to be celebrating Yom Ha'atzmaut, Israel Independence Day. To me, it's no accident. This is God's reminder that the darkness that's represented by the Holocaust and all those previous Holocausts comes before the light. And I ask myself, I'm here home, feeling helpless. I'm not doing enough. I'm not saying enough. I'm not out there enough. I ask myself, what can I do to help stop this cycle, this tide of darkness rising in the times I'm living in? And then I think about it. I can't even stop it in my own family. I sit here trying to step into the footsteps of my forefathers who came before me, the rabbi's steps. He had a huge seat or huge role to fill, trying to figure out what my role is. What's my purpose? And this week, I have gone through a time where I felt ultimate failure and being an ultimate fake, like I dress up to entertain, but can never really say what I want to say. My words are suppressed because they come out wrong or they sound judgmental. But I know that if we as a nation called by the creator of the universe do not return to the principle of the Torah, we are bringing this darkness into the world. And if I emphasize happiness and health and prosperity as reasons that we need to be obedient to the only thing that holds any truth in this world, I'm also a failure because those are not the object. My life experiences with God mean little if they don't spark a light in the people around me to choose good, tahor, not bad, tameh, to choose light, not darkness. This little remnant of a community, we need to be a stronger candle than we have ever been. And I don't want to spend time speaking against all the ideologies that pull us down into the mire of the darkness, that make us feel hopeless, because that's what happens when we watch the news or TV or all these things. We could be pulled into the mire of darkness. I want to spend my time choosing to do good in every situation, but it's impossible, as Rav Shaul says, because we're human. We can only do our best. So during this time, just like Rabbi said, I thought about it. Why am I sick? I felt sick. I was under tremendous, tremendous pressure. I had so many situations in my family, in the congregation, with Millie being sick and falling on the ground, and I hadn't found her for 2 days. I was beating myself up over and over again and thinking, who have I hurt? Who do I need to ask forgiveness for? All these things. Our nature is something we have to live with until the day the body goes back to the dust. And some of us are blunter than others. Sometimes I can be sharp and sarcastic and timid and fearful all at the same time. I know what it is to be ground down like fine pressed olives, but what comes out is pure olive oil. And the olive oil wants to be lit. And if we behave in a way that goes against the Torah, it sets a spark off that should force us to speak out. We know exactly who we are and what our intentions are. I have friends who think I'm against homosexuality. I'm homophobic. I hate Democrats, or I hate liberals, or I hate all this. They think I'm a religious fanatic who only wants to talk about God, God, God. Or others think that I just care about clothing and makeup and jewelry. Actually, today I hardly put any on because I am not those things. But my message today is to my people who are called Israel. The weight of the world is on our shoulders because we are chosen. We cannot call ourselves Israel and not want to be Israel. We can't call ourselves Jew and not want to be part of the God of the Jews. It doesn't mean that I have to wear, if I'm a man, have to wear this huge stroimel, the fox hats, or live in a shtetl and have tzitzit hanging down to my knees and pray all day long and be holier than thou? Or sit there with a finger pointing, look what you're doing? That's not what God is asking us to do. He's asking us to hear the words of Moses repeated by Yeshua. Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Listen, hear, God is one. Love him with everything you have, with everything you are, with everything he's provided for you. Give him thanks. Love your neighbor as you love yourselves. And that's our first job. Work on loving ourselves so that we can serve him in truth. We sing that every week. V'tar libenu le'avdecha be'emet. Serve. God wants us to serve him in truth. And what is truth? Torah. Life-giving principles. Not to talk about them, to do them. Until we as a people, Jew and Gentile under one God, the God of Israel, until we stop and examine our own lives instead of judging each other. And I put myself at the top of that list. Until we push forward to cross each of the rivers of life that try to stop us from serving him in truth, this world is going to continue to plunge into further darkness. We are all one. We're one people. We're all united. What happened before the last Holocaust? What happened before the pogroms? What happened before the Spanish Inquisition? What happened before Hanukkah, before Purim? Where were we as a people? It's easy to blame God. What brought these disasters upon us, leading us to lose everything except a remnant? We were far from the God who formed us, who gives us purpose, who puts us at the helm. And where are we now? We're doing the same thing it did in Judges. We're all doing what seems to be right in our own eyes. And it says in 2 Chronicles 7:14, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin and will heal their land. If you and I think, and I'm not talking about Miriam and I because I know what we think. If we think we're not doing anything wicked in God's eyes, we have not read the Torah. If we think that we can't change and have no hope, we have not read the Torah. So let's stop praising ourselves for all our great accomplishments and the strengths of our leaders and our armies. We can do nothing on our own. It's not luck or providence that holds us up. It's our God. And if we are not obedient to him by observing his loving principles that he gave us, he will turn his face away from us as he's doing now until we turn back to him. And let's not go crying to him and blaming him if we have problems, if we have tzuras. We did it to ourselves and we're still doing it. Doesn't matter how brilliant our children or our grandchildren are. If they are not honoring these 10 commandments, it means nothing to God. The Bernie Sanders of this world, the Epsteins, the Weinsteins, right down to you and I, we are to blame. We want to be like the pagan nations around us instead of carrying the light of God's 10 commandments wherever we go. Seeking good and doing what is right is not easy. And we don't need to battle with all the religious laws imposed upon us, the multitudes of kashrut laws that keep us so busy we have no time to love our neighbor. We all have the right to do teshuvah. That's what Rabbi was talking about. These are all pictures that we see, these bodily emissions. When they're in the body, they bring life. When they're outside the body, they're death. They're all pictures talking about choosing life. Don't choose death. We have the right to do teshuvah, and God gave us the way, and we don't need the temple or the Mishkan to do it. We can go directly to him. And if we don't, that's our choice. No one to blame but us. But when we do, his awesome sense of his covering and the protection cannot be compared with anything this world has to offer. That's what this message inspired within me today. It's a very strong message from Rabbi. I've said my little spiel. I was very moved by this. Miriam, I can't hear you. You're on
I
mute.
know. How could I add to that? I mean, I don't even know where to start, except yeah, it's so powerful. And what we talked about this week, like we have to almost like pull the curtains on ourselves. I remember I was listening to, I think it was Jordan Peterson, who I really like. Obviously, we're not in the same. I mean, if I got to talk to him one day, we would talk about these things. But he said how important it is to look at yourself squarely with intensity, take all the curtains away, and just to get to know yourself, to face yourself, and to be able to forgive yourself. For me, are the hardest things in the world. Like I often feel like I'm an imposter, and we have to just face ourselves. And I love what you read about Rav Shaul. To me, that's one of the most incredible passages in the scriptures because it's so true. Like the other day, just in a physical way, I was at the mall and I really felt like something sweet. Anyway, I got some kosher anyway, some sort of cinnamon crescent type of things. And it was so delicious, but it's one of it felt like they dumped a whole bowl of sugar into it. But as I was eating it, a little voice was going, Miriam, you're going to pay for this. But I kept eating it, kept eating it. And afterwards, like that night, I felt like I was in like a huge haze. It was so, anyway, that's just a metaphor for how we struggle. What we know to do is right, but we don't do it. And like so many things I watch on YouTube, and I get caught up in some of the old. I'm not going to knock everything I do, but like I was listening to this group I used to love, Jethro Tull. I mean, they're just a rock group, but I would listen to it over and over again, and like, it was like, and a little voice inside of me says, Mir, be still and know that I am God. Because I so often stray so far from God, and they say, who am I? What am I doing? And it's a constant battle to face yourself squarely, directly, you know. Well, the idea also be when you're sick, it's the hardest time to approach God when you're sick. When I went through my ordeal a couple of years ago, I was crying out to God, but couldn't feel any sense of his presence or reality. But I knew, because I believed that he was there, but it was like a haze of darkness and separation from God. I liked when Rabbi said, it's being in quarantine, that in order to grow, it's almost automatic that there are going to be moments of separation and hardship. A lot of authors have called this, and you can take it and make it your own however you want, but what do they call that? The great night, oh, sorry, it will come to me. But when you go through these struggles.
The dark night of our soul?
The what?
The dark night of our soul?
Something like that.
Yeah.
But when you go, it's often the case that you have to go through these things, to a greater or lesser way. These things that are terrible and painful and feel like separation from God in order to grow. But if you don't face these things, then it just becomes the glass half empty.
Well, yeah, but that's the picture of the olive. The olives are taken and pressed, squeezed, right till they're completely crushed to get the best oils. Our lives sometimes we are crushed because we are so our egos are so full. We're so full of ourselves. And especially we've been given certain characteristics, personalities. He began his message, I don't know if you noticed, he began and ended with one word: attitude. The attitude comes out of the intentions of our heart.
That's what everything boils down to.
Yeah.
Because if our heart, even at my worst, even at the times when I know I'm doing things that are wrong, part of me, like, there's that little still small voice, but I always look at it and we have to go back to the intentions of our heart.
Yeah.
But if you continue on and on and on and continually do what's wrong, from my own experience, there's only so far you can go without, I mean, there are consequences, but there's a place where there are people who are so, I'm talking about people, even you can call them people who've gone so far that there's no return. It's like with the Pharaoh. If you go so far, remember the expression, when your conscience is seared.
Right.
He had a chance. He could have, remember when he said, pray for me at the end? He said, pray for me. I mean, every single person has a chance to return. It doesn't always feel like it, but we do. And even another example of a horrible, terrible dictator who killed so many people, Nebuchadnezzar. But I believe we're going to see, like, I think he did return to God. Remember when he was eating grass and he finally acknowledged the one true God?
Right.
I think he returned. Now you can compare him to Pharaoh.
Yeah.
Pharaoh, from what we could tell from the scriptures, didn't return. Nebuchadnezzar.
The frustration is that we want the people around us to return. We want to take our brothers and sisters and our children, and our cousins and our nieces that we know are doing things that God is not approving us, that's bringing more darkness than light, and we want to shake them and we want them to come. So, and we feel helpless.
But sometimes though, like I look at people in my life, and they're people, listen, I'm not God, I can't judge, but just what appears to me, certain types of people strike me. I don't know where they are on their journey, but some of them seem like the door is closed and there's no, you can't, it's like, you cannot, you can't even approach and can't even talk to them. Then there are other people who may be living a horrible life, everything wrong, but there's something in them that seems like there's something of God's spark that's still there, and they're doing everything wrong. And we have to have patience too to know.
And I had a moment of that. I had a moment of that this week, Miriam. Sorry to cut you off again. That's a bad habit that I have, and it's a very Jewish thing. We cut each other off.
It's also an ADHD thing.
It's also an ADHD thing, exactly, because we know we're going to forget our thoughts right away. And as a matter of fact, I just forgot what I was going to say.
Because you said we're talking about when a person still has that light of God in them, but they're doing everything wrong, and you can speak to them and something may land.
Right.
But there's certain people I've met where it doesn't land.
Yeah, because it really is in God's hands.
That's really
and I had a tremendous sense of that this week, but it doesn't always last. That sense, it's almost like, yeah, but I have to do something, God. I have to help you, because really it is God who opens their eyes. We can't open people's eyes.
No.
Yes, yes, Richard. Sorry, Mims.
Yeah, go ahead, Richard.
You have your hand up.
Yeah, I can relate to Jethro Tull. I just want to say that.
He's the greatest. I love him.
Yeah, I had a compulsion of driving around and listening to music with media. In those days, I had an 8-track player.
Right.
All right.
Right.
And I played Aqualung, his album. Okay, so I can relate to that. I don't agree with a lot of things that were said today, but that's just me. I'll just talk about the dictator thing. I heard the concept of terrible dictator brought up. Okay, well, I'm understanding that until after World War II, the term dictator was not or even the term fascist was not a derogatory term. We look at it now as derogatory, all right, except it was not. Some countries like dictators, and some cultures are more amenable to authoritarian governments. We had this scholar in the United States who was once our ambassador to the United Nations. She said that she made the distinction between dictators and authoritarian people. Some authoritarians just like to know that they're in power, and others like to tell people what to do. So all this stuff about Nebuchadnezzar and the dictators we always talk about in the 20th century, keep in mind that it's a new thing to have dictatorship as a derogatory idea. I will now mute myself.
Okay, I'm going to just respond to what I think. There are, Richard, what they call benevolent dictators. And ultimately, I see your point because sometimes, I remember Rabbi Percy used to say, and I used to argue, blah, 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 that democracy is terrible, blah, blah, blah. And in a way, I see his point now, but we're not ready for a benevolent dictator because we're too filled with greed and we want to do things our way. So given that kind of nature that we have, maybe that's why democracy is the only system you can have. But ideally, in a world where not filled with such greed, a benevolent dictator, ultimately, God wanted to be we didn't want us to have a king because I know it's a derogatory term now, but a dictatorship by a benevolent ruler could be a good thing. So I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but we just don't seem capable of having that now. Look, even President Trump, okay, a lot of people don't like him, but he's doing a lot of good things, but a lot of people prefer to bash him as rather than even feeding the poor. So there's so much corruption in the world.
Are you going to change the subject before I can address it?
No.
Or are you going to continue?
Can I just say something real quick? I'm talking as an American, all right? And we have this thing in America on the history called the Federalist Papers. On the thinking of our founding fathers about separation of powers and not trusting people. So I agree with that sentiment. Okay, but keep in mind, most of the world does not have the, call it, consciousness of the Federalist Papers. So I will now mute myself forevermore this Shabbat.
You're funny, Richard. But Miriam, you took the words out of my mouth when you spoke about God as king and man as king. Because really, the only one looking down upon this planet and seeing the whole thing in its totality really is the Creator, the one who formed us. And he formed man from the dust of the earth. It started out with one man, Abram. He had a plan for mankind, and he never wanted us to have a man ruling as a king over us because he knows our nature, as you said. We are free. We are not free from our egos and our desire to rule over others. He calls us sheep. And the characteristics of sheep are that we are basically followers. We will be like lemmings, and even, fall off a cliff if that's what, the leader asks us to do. But God wanted us to have him as king. And as a king, he gave us his constitution. His constitution is not simple to do, but it's easy to understand. As soon as you put man in the quotient, that's when all the characteristics of the Yetzer Hara will come out. It's our nature. That's the picture we have of these dictators, whether or not you think it's a modern day derogatory term. Let me tell you, during the time of the Romans, There were a lot of people who hated their dictators, but they were afraid to say anything because they would be all killed. So just because a person can't speak it doesn't mean that they don't find that term derogatory. They just didn't have another way of, they had no solution because they were caught in a system. We have so many systems in this world today that entrap us, that take us away from the true freedom that only God wanted to give us. We have a Food and Drug Association, which is a system bent on keeping us sick. God's system makes us well and heals. We have a financial system that is controlling, where a small percentage of the people own most of, like a huge percent of the resources on the planet. All the human systems are out of balance because we have taken God out of that quotient. And there's only one. And I have people sending me all kinds of things about God, their gods, their ideas of a God that needs to be pacified, that needs to be constantly fed and catered to. This is not what our God wants from us. But the good news is that just like Yom HaShoah is followed by Yom Ha'atzmaut, one day the darkness will be supplanted and light will reign on this planet. In the meantime, we just have to do the very best that we can with what we've been given. And I'm more grateful than anybody that I know for being in this small little community that holds to me the kernel of truth. It is, even though we had, I said to myself, I don't know who's going to show up today because so many people were telling me they weren't going to be here. And I said, if it's just Miriam and I, it's enough. Where two or more are gathered in his name, I will be there. And God is with us. He's with us everywhere we go. We cannot hide from him. It doesn't matter what we do. We cannot hide from him. He's watching us. And yes, we do pay for the consequences of our choices, whether we eat too much sugar, whether we allow too much stress to hit us, whether we allow ourselves to be put down or lifted too high. It's all choice. And so the bottom line of Rabbi's message, what are we going to choose today? Will we choose life or we will choose death? And that's what each of us have to decide. So if there's nothing more that we can add to this message, I want to wish you a wonderful Shabbat Shalom. Please continue to pray for me that I will be completely healed. I already feel so much better than I did before. And I'm grateful for this quarantine period because God has shown me another layer of the peeling of the onion. We're like a huge onion, and we seem to go back around the mountain again. Why are we back and doing the same thing all over again? Another opportunity for teshuvah, another opportunity for growth. As they say, if God gives you lemons, you make lemonade. So have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you all for being with us. And I wish you a Shabbat Shalom. And after that, a Shavua Tov.
Shabbat Shalom. Shavua Tov.